Hello, and welcome back. So, last week we touched a little bit on Red Samurai and what we thought was going on there, and now we're going to continue forward and kind of break down the rest of the fight. If you like the video, feel free to like and subscribe. We are super easy going here, and you can comment down below any ideas you have about lore and theories, and we are breaking down the trailer. So, if you are joining us for the first time, hi, hello. I am Ambyes and I love Death Stranding. I love the lore, I love the myth, I love just kind of looking for details because Hideo is really good at hiding them, and I also love all the little nods to real life science, physics, and math. So, without further ado, let's get into the trailer. Quite possibly the craziest thing is that you can actually hear the sound of like a gun cocking whenever Higgs turns around with his guitar. It makes the same noise as someone like racking the slide or something like that. Basically, listen to this noise. So that's fun that they're literally giving this guitar like gun sounds. You can also hear it shooting bullets. Something that we now know from the Strands of Harmony orchestra that is going around is that there will be a debuted song that we don't haven't been introduced to, that we don't know about yet, that is a boss battle song, and it features heavy guitar riffs, and I think that's going to be Higgs's boss battle song, but I could be wrong. Hopefully we won't be copyright striked for that. We were definitely struck for copyright whenever I posted the Death Stranding Into the Wilder. It released early accidentally on Spotify, and I posted it to YouTube because typically when it's a video game, you don't get like knocked for it. You just have to like basically it allows it to be played, but you have to still credit the person. And I got copyright struck for it because I guess it wasn't technically out early enough. And anyway, yeah, I got like a strike against my channel. So sad. But if you've heard this before, I hope you enjoyed it. It's actually better this time that I listened to it. I think the first time I was like, what? But it's definitely got some rock opera vibes, and as someone who was a really big fan of Repo the Genetic Opera, it's like a horror opera. Definitely worth watching if you haven't. It's kind of old, campy, but it's pretty good. It's got Paris Hilton, which is always funny. Like she's actually very good in the movie. Don't doubt her abilities. It's quite fun. But anyway, so moving on, I definitely think that the riffs and the guitar are going to be used a lot in the game. So right after he shoots the lightning at the baby samurai, baby samurai disappears into the smoke and instantly reappears on his other side. And Higgs is unaware. He looks surprised. He's kind of like, what? And he turns around and tries to shoot him again with his guitar. So I definitely don't think that there's anything giving away that he's teleporting. We don't hear any noises. We don't see any effects. So that's really interesting and new. We have not seen that. The other thing that I'd like to point out is just kind of some details that you can see right now. I absolutely think that the blue Ojidek and the strings on his guitar are going to be related in more than just color. I also think that if you look at Red Samurai's sword, that's the same color that Higgs's guitar takes on in a moment when he disconnects his aux cord. So I'm going to think of this as like a charged weapon. So somehow these weapons have been plugged into something that's giving them this ultra hot glowing red look. There's a lot of smoke in the room. It's difficult to tell if it's smoky just because he's cutting the robots in half or because of Higgs's guitar, or if we're getting some vestiges of like the beach where we've kind of seen during Sam and Fragile's kiss, during Higgs and Tomorrow's face touching. We get these weird shimmers that don't necessarily appear to be the same because we're not turning blue, but they don't quite appear to be um, anything else. I'm not totally sure what that could mean. And I don't really get what happened here. In the video, it looks like Red Samurai does one clean sweep with their sword through both robots, but that would mean that they would hit Sam with the sword, but we can see that Sam is completely fine. There's no marks on him. But at no point did I see the robots release him. So I'm curious, could the sword maybe not hurt humans? Does the sword only hurt, these robot creatures? That's something that I think was worth pointing out. It's also very difficult to see what happens because it is such a quick clip. So let's watch it one more time in slow motion. So we see the sword hit, and I mean, it's a solid motion. So again, does it just not hurt humans? They didn't appear to pull back. They didn't appear to do anything that would keep Sam out of the way, and he's in the same position he was before. So I mean, what in the world? What do you guys think is happening there? These are the same particles that we see in the Magellan clip where he is smiling at the camera and has his cast card. We have like red, yellow, and blue confetti almost is what it looks like. I also don't understand why Higgs turns around like this. Starts off one way and then pivots completely the other way, which doesn't make any sense because if you're already turning that other direction, why would you then give your back to your aggressor to turn around the opposite direction? We do get a good look at his skeleton legs and how they work. They're pretty neat looking. They kind of like wobble with him. He's still plugged into his guitar, which is good to know because if you notice, he doesn't have any of the red lines yet, like how the sword has, but he also, I think it's kind of weird. He's using his hand. If you look, he's almost doing like a motion like you would with an old rolled up window where you actually had to grab a handle and roll it. And I thought that was a weird motion. I think that this could be the most important frame in today's video. if you look at the spot that is shooting out the fire electricity, you see these yellow sparkles, and we've seen these multiple times. We've seen the sparkles on Charlie. We've seen like little emoji type icons when we're given a thumbs up, and I just think that's really odd that they're there. I don't think it's a mistake that they have that shape. Here's a couple clips that show that same shape in other spots of the trailer. So I'm curious what you think about that. Is there something new about the beach or the seam or these strings that maybe makes these diamond type asterisk shapes? And also, I wonder what that means for Charlie. Here's a better clip of him turning around. I think we get a better idea of his outfit. It's a lot more sharp and crisp in this image. There's also a behind the scenes photo of Leia holding this guitar. So that's something I haven't seen anywhere. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know if it's going to be some sort of flashback or if, that's another reason I think Higgs and Fragile might be working together or reluctant allies. It looks like they have a scene together in the behind the scenes photos. There's definitely a scene where they're sort of kneeling, talking together, which I think is going to be a flashback to the end of Death Stranding 1, possibly where he's maybe telling her the truth about everything. And anyway, she's holding this guitar, but she doesn't necessarily look confident, so I don't know. Just something to keep in mind. It would be really cool if we could utilize it like a weapon. I had forgotten how uncomfortable Red Samurai's face made me until this clip. Its mask is so strange. I am glad that I lightened this image though, because I did not see Sam in the background until just now. Initially, I thought, what if Red Samurai is Charlie, as I was thinking about the AI and how there's obviously some form of that, and it would make sense if it's an AI, it wouldn't be picked up by Odridex and such. But the fact that Sam is down on the ground, seemingly in a protective sort of stance, like he's not sure if he's safe. Now, that could be because Higgs is shooting lightning bolts out of his guitar, for sure. But I'm going to go ahead and say that this probably isn't Charlie. It's probably no one that Sam recognizes. There's an odd shape here that seems to be like a circle with some lines that might be reminiscent of the Amalite effigy, but who knows. I would point out that the suit has this kind of asymmetrical zipper across the stomach, and that reminds me actually of Fragile's outfit and how it's asymmetrical. So maybe that's related somehow. Its face, I don't know why it makes me so uncomfortable, but that bottom reminds me of course, like a pharaoh's beard. They always had long beards. It was kind of like a symbol, a status symbol in Egypt. Like that was just, your pharaoh had the headpiece and the beard. But I just don't know if I should be leaning into that Egyptian iconography, only because it was, heavily alluded to in the first game. So it wouldn't surprise me if Hideo just kind of like left that in the dust. He always likes to do something new in his games. Red Samurai has so much armor on that sometimes I think maybe there is a person inside of this suit. You know, regardless of the baby sounds and stuff that we hear, just because, the other robots don't have this much defensive gear. And of course, some of it might be to give it like a little design element. When he has his arm up like that, it does give kind of the imagery of wings, something like a butterfly. So if we do find out this is Lou or something fighting for Lou, Lou has got to be related to this thing. I don't know why there would be a baby laughing. But I think there is some wing imagery there. So it's either there just because it's an aesthetic piece and it'll be the wing imagery and we'll be like, oh my gosh, it was Lou this whole time. Look, we figured it out. Or it'll be there for defensive reasons. And that gives us some motive of like, this is probably someone who can still get injured inside there. But I don't know which one I'm leaning towards at the moment. This brightened clip where the lightning has kind of struck Red Samurai allows us a little bit of a crisper look at the armor and some of the details. I think personally for me, what makes me so uncomfortable about this design is the mask and lack of eyes. There's something about that to me that's very creepy. And then the fabric almost seems like they are trapped. This feels like a straitjacket kind of outfit. And so to me, it's very uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable visually. Now, when we look at its head, it actually looks like it has a zipped up piece at the top. It might be buttoned, it's kind of hard to tell, but it does seem like there's something underneath inside that cavity. We don't really see any extra details here that help us understand any more of the head. As I said earlier, this outfit reminds me a lot of Fragile's outfit. Even the shoulders have the like chiral sensing spikes that her leather outfit has, both in Death Stranding 1 and in Death Stranding 2. But the overall mech is all Higgs. It has the same gloves that Higgs has, or very similar to his. Even the band through the center of the palm is similar. The only difference really is like the defensive parts, and even the strap over the chest that we can see here with the buckle is really reminiscent of what Sam wears when he's trying to, attach his BB to the bracket. And if that's the case, and this person or thing is sharing attributes with each of the three main characters, it has some Porter outfit similarities to Sam's, it has some leather outfit similarities to Fragile, and it has the armor similarities to Higgs. That really begs the question, who created it? Where did it come from? Is it new mech? Is it old mech? We really don't know because we're not familiar with what's available outside of the Bridges universe, because that's really where we've been stuck for Death Stranding 1. I'm very partial to the chiral gold colors that we were able to use on our sunglasses, our hats, and things in Death Stranding 1, but I really haven't seen any gold imagery in the trailers. The only even really hint of gold that I can really remember off the top of my head is Tarman. And he sort of has, the chiral gold in his cat eyes and some on his pins on his jacket. But, that was something that I felt like was really popular in the last game. So it's surprising not to see it in anyone's outfits currently. This is one of the few times that the sword is not red, it's black, which I don't know again what to think about that, because it might be steel, but it feels like they don't have that in Death Stranding 1. That's not something they have a lot of. They have special alloys, so maybe it's related to that. There is a tiny bit of gold on the hilt of the sword. Now, I went into this in my string theory video when I covered Red Samurai before we really knew anything about it, and I talked a lot about what that symbol could mean. It's kind of a unending knot, and how that might relate to being able to send things back to their maker, where we see it cutting up these robots. So shapes are something that I feel like Hideo uses pretty often, and a shape that repeated for me that I was starting to notice was on his wing. It has the same shape as the guitar that Higgs is using. It has the same outline if you just look at the outer edges. Another thing is that there's like an additional black piece near the Ojideck that I'm not sure like why it's there. Because the Ojideck I thought was coming out of the mask, And it seems like there's some wires, so it might actually be coming out of the chest rather than out of the head. It's kind of a weird setup that they have, because that typically would be the part that's like bracketed to your shoulder. So odd. I really thought it was coming directly out of the head because of its placement, but I'm thinking that it might actually be coming out of like the clavicle area. I have some close ups that help us maybe better understand some of the armor pieces. We definitely have some numbers that, to me, they appear similar to how the regular Porter gear is printed. I mean, it's numbered, it has an ID code. But then in the same breath, we have more of that really weird, like APAC font. Now, the hands have very obvious bolts or something in them, so I don't think there's any argument it's not a robot. And there's some tiny text on the head, but I can't make it out. And of course, Higgs is quite funny in this shot. He just looks a little odd, but it looks like on the arm piece that it's bolted directly into the suit, which is interesting because there's nothing there to bolt it to, which I think again is more evidence that this is not a living person under the suit. The font doesn't get any better for us here, but we can see a better view of the spine on the robot, and it is extremely similar, if not the same, to what Higgs is wearing. Um, the only, major difference is that black piece that has like the circles on it. I think that is interesting. Maybe instead of the coffin being on its back, maybe it's inside. Maybe that's a way that protects its string from being cut. I don't know. But it also has like a torso strap, just like Higgs has. And the circles that I call like fragiles, chiral spikes on her shoulders and her outfits, I do have to say, are the same shapes that we see on the bottoms of Higgs' fingertips and on the octopus tongues and tentacles. So, do with that what you will. That is a very common motif. This slow motion clip allows us to better see how that cord is moving of its own accord, basically. It is interesting that it like goes back up in his abdomen, and why was there not like a better place for that to be? That's the reason I think that there must be something to the theory that, you know, he's plugged in, just like how the BBs plug into a porter's body through a needle or whatever you want to call it and somehow gets into their bloodstream. I think this is very similar. And we know that Higgs recycled equipment in the first game. He was using porter gear. His Oger deck was just the regular porter's Oger deck. He had a BB pod. In the book, Sam talks about that there are illegal BBs, which how do you even have illegal BBs? I'm guessing somehow through terrorists. I don't know. That's really a strange concept to me because BBs already are made in terrible ways. So, how would there be an illegal version of something that is basically already illegal? But it does bring up a really good story point that if people were trying to make illegal BBs and one of them survived, how would that affect things? And would they retain any connection to both worlds? I think I think we're going to get a backstory of someone who has been in a similar situation. If it's not Higgs, then I think we'll be introduced to a character that has a similar backstory. Just because that's the only thing that we haven't explored with BBs is, we have Sam, but he was created in like the best of circumstances. He was a BB made where they had all of the Bridges tech and all the best scientists. I wonder where these porters that Sam dealt with in the first game in the book, where are they getting these BBs from? Are they decommissioned BBs and they're just still utilizing them? Or has Sam ever hooked up to the fake BB, the one that's a doll? I don't think so because I think he would recognize it. There's a clip in the first game where there's the there's a discussion, and a porter basically says that he was given a BB and that it made him so depressed and suicidal that he couldn't shake the feeling, and he just wanted the whole world to end. And you basically find out that it was a doll and not a real BB. So I don't know what to think there. I do think it's funny that, if you really think about it, I mean, a baby doll, a BB doll, they're kind of just two of the same thing, which I feel like this game is so interesting with its duality. This is my least favorite part of the music in the trailer because for some reason it really hurts my ears. I think it's like the high pitched screeching of like the electricity we're supposed to be hearing. What I will say about his guitar is that this is the cleanest look that we really get at it. And I really like that we can see his gloves. This is the best that I can do for the text on the guitar. We see a couple dials, like there's one right by his fingertips that looks similar to that shape that we saw on the Red Samurai's outfit that had the same coloring, same line width. I think it's interesting that his gloves have those long black streaks coming out of the fingertips. It's hard to tell what they were going for, but you can definitely tell at the fingernail part that they're raised up and might be a different material. The storytelling seems to be saying that when he's hooked up to this thing and he's utilizing this power, that he is pulling from like the tar currents because he is getting more and more tar on him. Which, speaking of tar, you can actually see that where the strings would normally be seems to have tar pulled up inside it. It's got kind of that goopy texture that we see whenever liquids are around, especially like those tar-like liquids. But his fingertips are interesting too because we can see on his middle and ring finger that there is tar or the textured part of the glove on the bottom of those two fingers, but he doesn't have that on the pointer or the pinky for this hand. And in this zoomed out image, we can actually see him disconnecting the cord. So something to note, and I don't know if they'll explain it to us in the game, is that whenever he grabbed his guitar and brought it out, the cord moved of its own accord. There was no helping it along. However, when removing the cord, he manually unplugs it. And then, right after, the blade on the guitar becomes red, just like this Red Samurai's sword. That's interesting to me because I thought, okay, well, that just means that it's charged and ready to go. So maybe we can think of the guitar as a sort of battery. Maybe it feeds off of life force instead of like the chiral network recharging it. And this is a really nice, crisp image where we can actually see that come to life. Again, it seems to be that same string that he was using before, but now he doesn't seem to need the plug-in for it to be working. I want to point out that the holster on that left side, if it is a holster, it's not like a holster that I've seen before, unless it's kind of like, there are some holsters that I think, like there's the T-Rex holster. There's not that many gun holsters out there, but basically it's modular, and so the actual gun and holster come off, but you could keep the like holstered band on your leg and just kind of like literally take the modular piece off whenever you don't want the whole gun on, but you still want it to technically be safe if you don't have a safety on your pistol. If it's not a holster for a gun, it might be a knife holster because it's extremely shallow. It doesn't seem like it has enough room for anything else. It would have to be something very thin to fit in it. And a funny side note is this is actually what made me believe that he wasn't a cyborg. And it's because he has the cup on. And I don't think there's any reason for you to protect your groin if you're a robot. I really think that he's still human, and if there's I think that's the best evidence for him to still be human, is that he doesn't want to get hit in the crotch. So that's my defense for why I think he is very much human. And he's enjoying himself. He's grinning, he's smiling, he's loving this fight. When this first came out, I initially thought, and a group of my friends were talking, and we just felt like this this battle at first, we thought, okay, he must have helped Lou on the beach. They must have some sort of a camaraderie because this is just like a playful fight between like a kid and their dad. But the more that I've watched it, the less that I think that. At first, I thought with all the baby laughter, it was like a play fight between, like a baby monster and Higgs, because that I could see that happening. He doesn't seem to have a lot of common sense. But I'm not so sure about that now. Higgs is so dramatic. So he does this whole throw the guitar around his body in order for it to come all the way back around so that he can defend himself from Red Samurai's sword attack. Kind of goofy, kind of theatrical, and in my opinion, again shows that Red Samurai probably isn't a threat because Higgs is showing out, he's showing off. The leg pieces are kind of interesting because of the way that they wrap around, and they even connected the ankles and kind of go under the shoe, the same way that like ballerina tights might, where there's like an elastic band that goes under the heel of your foot, kind of sets in the arch so that they don't come off. The technology he's using for the guitar is interesting because he doesn't seem afraid that he's going to touch the super hot part of it and like burn his fingers off. So again, I'm not sure if they're red because they're so hot that they can burn through things, which is what it seemed like whenever Red Samurai hit the robots, or if they're red because they're supercharged with something else that isn't necessarily detrimental to humans. Um, in the very next clip, he swings himself around so that he's ready to defend himself. We get another pretty good look at the weird armor that Red Samurai is wearing, and we get a better look at his torso. So just like how Rainy has two pieces on her yellow dress that I'm still not sure what they are or what they do, Red Samurai has the same thing on his. At this point, he doesn't have any wounds on him, but he does have the lines that remind me of the guitar. And so I'm curious, is it just because they're from the same place, or is Red Samurai possibly of a similar outfit? It would be nice for Higgs to finally have some competition. In the first game, he was the only terrorist. And now in the second game, he appears to be the only Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs robot guy in the game. So it would be nice to have another antagonist so that there is more realism to the world. In Death Stranding 1, it felt very one note. There was one guy leading all the terrorists. It felt very local. Maybe that's what I should say. It felt very much like small scale and like almost like instead of a terrorist, he was just like a gang leader. He wasn't really he wasn't doing anything on like a worldwide scale like he wanted to. And now that we have that opportunity, I wonder, will there be other terrorists? Will there be other anti-terrorists that will help us out? And Sam will see that the world is not just on his shoulders and that there are others out here, both good and evil, fighting. His elbows also have like these strings, sort of like almost tightening the cloth around like whatever is underneath the leather, and that reminds me a little bit of the drawbridge strings that light up. But these, haven't lit up at all. So just saying that is design similar. We know that the character designer really appreciates anatomy and always wants to elevate that artistically in all of his designs. It's why the Metal Gear Solid stuff is so sexualized, for lack of a better word. Like, he wants all the outfits to really show off the human body, their anatomy. Everything should be secondary to like our human characteristics. And as we end the video, that's what I'm going to leave you to think about is We have Higgs in the first game, and he is not sexualized at all. There's nothing about his outfit that is appreciative of human characteristics. We even know that in the character art for Higgs that he was initially missing a finger, which would have hurt his chiral symmetry. And I'm sure that was the reason that they were thinking about doing it. It was probably just to show that he didn't have symmetry. But in regards to his Death Stranding 1 costuming, he was very bulky. He was covered in armored pads. It was very hard to even see the shape of his body because he was so bulked out in like gear. Whereas in this new outfit, it is very much focused on him, his physique, his like length because he is so tall, and this outfit really shows how languid he is. He kind of walks almost like a cat, and I think that that is something to note, that they're taking it that direction. So whereas his literal humanity was being hidden in the first game, we seem to be seeing it more so now, even though he is literally being kind of shown as a robot. We are unfortunately being attacked by alarms here, lots of garbage trucks and people building and doing construction. So I'm going to end the video here. That way you guys don't have to listen to any weird noises in the background. And I'll see you next week whenever we continue with the fighting scenes.